In the year 1888, the streets of London turned into a scenario of panic that lasted for several months. The culprit behind this terror was a man known as Jack the Ripper, whose malevolence caused fear and apprehension among the population, especially among women. During that time, many men made a living by committing crimes, while many women turned to prostitution to survive, given the challenging living conditions. The momentary relief from their problems often came in the form of alcohol, and in many cases, it was during these vulnerable moments that the murderer struck. Jack the Ripper followed a sinister and cruel pattern. His victims were largely prostitutes, whose bodies he left mutilated in the streets of London. This killer became one of the most infamous serial killers in history, and his story continues to intrigue the world to this day. The first murder occurred on August 31st when the body of Mary Ann Nichols, a 42-year-old woman, was discovered. She had suffered deep cuts to her throat and abdomen. Mary Ann Nichols, the daughter of a blacksmith, had been abandoned by her husband and resorted to making a living through prostitution and petty theft. A few days later, the second victim, Annie Chapman, was found dead. She was married and had 2 children, but after her divorce, she turned to prostitution to survive. On the night of her death, Annie Chapman was seen drinking at a lodging house before disappearing. Her body was discovered with her throat cut and internal organs scattered. Elizabeth Stride, the third victim, was different from the others, as she was a prostitute before she got married. Elizabeth was a Swedish immigrant who arrived in London in 1866 and married in 1869. After her husband's death, she returned to prostitution. On the night of her death, she was seen with an unidentified gentleman. Her body was found with her throat cut, although it was not mutilated like the previous victims. The fourth victim, Catherine Eddowes, had a turbulent life, with troubled relationships and a struggle with alcoholism. She was found drunk on the streets of London on the night of her death and was taken to a police station. Shortly after being released, her body was discovered with terrible mutilations, including the removal of internal organs. Jack's fifth and final victim, Mary Jane Kelly, was one of the youngest and most beautiful. She became a successful prostitute after her husband's death in a coal mine accident. Her body was found brutally mutilated in her room, with grotesque injuries to her abdomen, face, and limbs. Although these are the 5 known victims of Jack the Ripper, there are theories suggesting that he might have claimed more unidentified victims. During the investigation, over 100 suspects were identified, including a shoe repairman, a Swedish butcher, and even Prince Albert Victor, grandson of Queen Victoria. Many theories emerged, but the true identity of the killer remains a mystery. The case of Jack the Ripper remains one of the greatest enigmas in the history of crime. Even after more than 130 years, scant evidence, incorrect information, and false testimonies continue to challenge investigators. The story of this cruel killer continues to intrigue and fascinate people, fueling theories and suspicions. Perhaps one day, with the aid of technology, the mystery of Jack the Ripper will finally be unraveled. Until then, we continue to speculate and remember this terrible chapter in London's history.